I'm 79 years old, and I've reached a point where there's no more pretending about what mattered and what didn't. When you get this close to the end, certain things get very clear, and they don't ask permission before they sit down beside you. I don't tell this story because I'm proud of it. I'm telling it because I don't have much time left to carry it alone. And because maybe someone listening still has time I no longer do. These days, my mornings are quiet. Too quiet. I wake up before the light comes in, not because I'm disciplined, but because sleep doesn't stay with me anymore. My body knows the routine, even if my mind doesn't want to. I sit at the edge of the bed, feet on the cold floor, and I take a moment before standing. Not to stretch, to remember where I am, who I am now. There's a clock on the wall across from me. Ticks louder than it used to, or maybe I just notice it more. Time sounds different when you don't have much of it left. At this age, people assume you've made peace with everything, that you've sorted your memories into neat piles. The good ones on top, the bad ones forgiven. That's not how it works. Some realizations come late, and they don't come gently. The biggest one for me is this: I sacrificed things that should never have been negotiable. Not because anyone forced me to, not because I was careless, but because I thought there would always be another chance to come back to them. I was wrong. When I was younger, I wasn't trying to ruin my life. I was trying to build one. That's important to say. In my 20s and 30s, I did what most people around me were doing. I worked. I showed up. I kept my head down. I believed in effort, in responsibility, in earning my place. I wasn't reckless. I didn't chase wild dreams or burn everything down. I took the steady path, the sensible one, the one that earned nods of approval from older men who looked like they had it figured out. I got a job that paid the bills, then one that paid a little more, then one that demanded more of me than I expected. But I said yes anyway. Saying yes became a habit. Promotions, extra hours, weekend calls, missed dinners that were supposed to be temporary. I told myself it was all for a reason. I remember coming home late one night, shoes still on, sitting at the kitchen table with the light off. The house was quiet. Everyone was asleep. I thought, this is what providing looks like. This is what being dependable feels like. What I didn't realize was that while I was building stability, I was slowly stepping away from presence. It didn't happen all at once. That's the dangerous part. There was no moment where I said, I choose work over people. It was smaller than that. A meeting instead of a school event. A deadline instead of a conversation. We'll talk later. Next weekend. After this project. Later became a word that followed me for decades. There were birthdays I half attended. I was there in body, but my mind was elsewhere. I'd smile, cut the cake, check the time. There were conversations where someone needed me to listen, really listen, and I gave them advice instead. Or silence. Or a distracted nod. I thought I was being efficient. I thought I was managing life. What I was really doing was postponing the parts of life that don't wait. Relationships don't announce when they're thinning out. They don't break loudly. They fade. They adjust to your absence until one day you realize they no longer expect you. I missed the subtle signs. Or maybe I saw them and chose not to look too closely. It's hard to admit that you're the one drifting away. There were moments that should have slowed me down. A look held a second longer than usual. A quiet disappointment that wasn't argued out loud. A sentence that began with, "You're always busy." I brushed those off. I told myself everyone goes through this phase. That once things settled, I'd be more available, more relaxed, more present. Things never settled. They just moved on without me. The cost of those choices didn't arrive as a disaster. It arrived as distance, as fewer shared stories, as inside jokes I no longer understood, as being told about important moments instead of being part of them. By the time I noticed, The shape of my life had already changed. The turning point wasn't dramatic either. No shouting. No collapse. It was a phone call. A simple one. A voice on the other end trying to stay steady while delivering news that could not be undone. Someone I loved was gone. And I wasn't there at the end. Not because I didn't care. Because I assumed there would be more time. That assumption is one I wish I could take back. It sits heavier than most regrets because it was never questioned. I built my life around it. More time. Later. Eventually. Eventually doesn't come for everyone. Standing at a funeral, you notice strange details. The way the air feels. The sound of shoes on the floor. The things people say when they don't know what else to offer. I remember thinking about a conversation we never finished. A visit I delayed. Call I meant to return. There is no fixing that. No making up for it. The door closes quietly, and that's it. After that, I started seeing my past differently. Not as a series of big mistakes, but as a collection of small sacrifices I never questioned. I sacrificed mornings. I sacrificed patience. I sacrificed listening. I sacrificed being there when it wasn't convenient. I told myself I was doing the right thing. And maybe, in some ways, I was, but I never asked what it was costing me. Now, at 79, the cost is obvious. The house is quieter than it should be. The phone rings less. People remember you differently when you're no longer central to their daily lives. You become a figure from their past. Someone they care about but don't rely on. That's a hard thing to accept when you spent so many years being needed. What can't be fixed is the version of me that could have chosen differently. That man is gone. So are the moments he missed. So are the chances to show up when it mattered most. I can't rewind to the evenings I spent working instead of listening. I can't relive the conversations I cut short. I can't be younger and more available and wiser all at once. I can only sit with the truth of it. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, I won't tell you what to do. I don't have the right to. I'll only tell you what I learned too late. The things that feel urgent rarely remember you. The people who love you do. Presence is not something you earn later. It's something you give while you still can. Success has a way of convincing you that sacrifice is temporary. That the real life begins once you've proven yourself. But life doesn't wait at the starting line. I used to think being remembered meant leaving something behind. A title. A reputation. A record of effort. What I see now is that being remembered is much quieter than that. It's a feeling people carry. Or don't. I don't say this with bitterness. There's gratitude here too. I had good years. I had chances. I had love. I just didn't protect it the way I should have. If this meant something to you, sit with it for a moment. Not because I said so, because time is already moving, whether you notice it or not. As for me, I take my mornings slowly now. I listen more than I speak. I let the clock tick. I accept that some things are finished. At 79, you don't get to fix everything. You only get to understand it. And sometimes that understanding is enough to finally tell the truth. Like subscribe.